Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
Sun is rising, feel the warmth on my face. There's a lot to do now, but there ain't no race. I sip my coffee, I'm feeling fine. No need to work yet, I'm gonna take my time. It's a brand new day, gotta take it on my way. Gotta take it on my way. It's a brand new day. Gotta take it on my way. Gotta take it on my way.
Good evening. Welcome to WSBI, your Resource for Success podcast program, where you get to meet inspiring women-owned businesses from across the country. My name is Kimberly McLemore, and I am your host. With us we have Renee Bobb, philanthropist, author, empowerment trainer, publisher, radio and TV show host, and owner of R.B.I. Enterprise. Welcome, Renee.
Good evening. Welcome. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it is my pleasure, and I am so excited. I'm sure I'm more excited about this and nervous than probably you are, because I know you're used to this. And
That's a good thing.
yeah, so I've been like, okay, I've been waiting. We have a little bit of history between us. It's been some years since we actually have talked, because when I met you years ago, I was on your show a long, long time ago. So it's a pleasure to be able to have the opportunity to interview you, and you be able to talk to the listeners and share your story. So to get us started, why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself?
So, again, I'm so glad to be here. And like you mentioned, I do own R.B.I. Enterprise, which is an empowerment training and development firm. And I've actually been self-employed for a little bit over 20 years. I actually started my company when I got out of the United States Navy. I served in the Navy as a telecommunications operator, as well as a basketball player. So once I decided to make the transition out, I started a career development firm helping people that want to make the transition to actually secure employment. But after doing that for a couple of years, more and more people they really wanted me to help them start their own business. So that's when I began to incorporate entrepreneurship training and really working with individuals to identify their God-given talents and skills and show them how they can use that in order to actually start their own business. After doing that for a couple of years, I also incorporate the book publishing component, because whenever I go to speak, people always say, well, where is your VHS tape? This is before CDs and DVDs and MP3s.
Exactly.
They would say, where's your cassette tape?
Wow.
So I didn't have any of that. So I took one of my speeches that I always give about entrepreneurship, look before you leap into business, and I gave it to my graphic designer, and he laid it out, put together a phenomenal little booklet, and in less than 2 years, I had sold a little bit over 50,000 copies. So that's when I really began to incorporate more of the book publishing. So today, I really focus in 4 specific areas: financial empowerment, career development, book publishing, and entrepreneurship. And I offer that in workbooks, teleseminars, webinars, as well as live presentations to government agencies, corporations, as well as small business owners.
Okay. All right. Well, boy, that is a wealth of information. And what we're going to do is that before we dive into some of those business pieces, I'm going to just kind of backtrack a little bit. But one thing before I actually ask these other questions, that we absolutely have something else in common. I'm ex-military and ex-Navy as well. So I was like so excited. And I did read that about you. I was like, oh, I knew there was something special about this lady.
And what was your job in the Navy?
I was a torpedoman in the Navy.
Excellent.
Yes. Yeah, so a whole different category. You know, us women were not supposed to be doing it, but in '84, that was another piece that was offered to us as women in the military versus doing the typical being administrative type role or being in the medical field. So it was something unique and different. And I was stationed in Norfolk, Virginia. Was one of my duty stations, but I started out in South Carolina. So yeah, so I was around for a little while. I did about 14 years. So I knew there was something else we had in common, and I was like, oh, it's another wave.
Oh, you're absolutely correct. Interestingly, because of the military background, I actually do the boost to business training here in Nashville, Tennessee, for veterans that are interested in learning how to start and grow their own business.
Wow, and that's excellent, because there's many of us veterans and other military people who just don't know what to do when they do come out, because a lot of the fields that they're in the military don't, you can't utilize them out here in the real world, so to speak. So it's really great to see that you have a program that's available, because it's definitely more needed, and especially with women. It seems to be, I'm finding and learning throughout the last several years that there are more and more veteran women, who just need those skill sets and need just as much help as the men do. It's always seemed to be that the men were the focus, and now there are more programs available for women as well. But before we kind of continue to dive into this interview, I want to know a little bit about where you're from, and before you came in the military, talk a little bit about that.
Okay, so I'm originally from Staten Island, New York, and I actually played basketball, in middle school, high school, All-American, and then I got a scholarship to play at Cheyney State University, which was Division I basketball.
Wow.
So after playing Division I, then I actually joined the United States Navy. But my DNA is all New York.
Yeah, I can hear it in you. So yeah, it's a huge change from New York, and then like I said, going to the military, and of course you're not in New York now, but what really kind of inspired you to actually start the business, beyond the fact that, hey, you knew that people were asking you these questions about, can you help me? Was there anything else that inspired you to do what you're doing?
Yeah, I grew up in New York, of course, but I grew up in the projects, and so in that environment, there were not a lot of role models for me to look at, but I knew that I always wanted to be a business owner. Mm-hmm. I always knew that I wanted to kind of, be able to speak, teach, and train, but I was a young person. So my mother was very intuitive, and she put me in Toastmasters as soon as they had like a teen Toastmasters program. Mm-hmm. So she was able to be very instrumental in giving me the skill set that I need to develop myself as an entrepreneur, as a speaker, and as a trainer. So I felt like in that environment where you don't have a lot of positive role models, I wanted to be that for other people. So that's really what motivated me to really want to help people to start and grow their own business.
Well, you have definitely done a fantastic job. You didn't just start it, you ran with it. Okay, right. So you have got a multitude of things that you're doing, and like I said, we're going to touch on that a little bit. So let's, I guess, kind of dive into talk a little bit about your financial empowerment program and what you provide in that program.
When I first moved to Nashville, Tennessee, it was at the heart of the Great Recession. And, my business was thriving, but unfortunately, due to the recession, everything began to fall apart. And unfortunately for me, I was reactive rather than being proactive. Mm-hmm. And it really took a we were really hit very hard, especially as a single parent raising two children. Mm-hmm. So I actually did some research to identify, what was the root cause of my financial challenges? Was it the recession? Was it the divorce? Was it all this, things that are happening in the environment? But really, when I peeled back the onion of self, I realized that I was not a good steward over my finances. So I began to study everything that I could about learning about money management and building wealth and how to be a good steward over my finances. And then there were 7 nonprofit agencies in Nashville, Tennessee, mm-hmm. that received the stimulus money from President Obama. Mm-hmm. And so once I mastered my system, I reached out to those 7 nonprofits and said, hey, I have a degree, but it's not in finances, but I have been hit by the recession. I have bounced back from it. I've learned how to build wealth and get my finances in order. And I want to be able to take that information and train other people. So I submitted the 7 proposals to 7 nonprofits, and I won 4 of the 7 contracts, wow. which gave me the opportunity to take the tools that I've learned and do one-on-one coaching, as well as seminars, workshops for those people that were dealing with the same financial issues that I was dealing with as well. Mm-hmm. So to this day, I actually go into the Tennessee Prison for Women And I do a financial literacy workshop for those women that are about to be released from prison.
Wow, that is excellent. And it's amazing. I was kind of listening how you're talking about the fact that you had to go back and kind of reanalyze who you were and what you were doing to understand how did you get in the situation, and then how are you going to get out of it so you can move forward. And I think that's important, because anybody who's going to business, that's always the number one thing that I talked about too, is like, what is your finances? Do you even know? It's amazing how many people don't even understand what a budget is, or don't know how they're going to be able to move from one place to the next. And with all the crises that we're hitting early on, and even till this day, with all the issues that are going on financially, people still are living outside their means. They don't really know where their next meal is going to come from, or how they're going to pay this next bill, because they haven't taken the time to research, what it is they need to do to level that out and make sure that they are living within their means, so that they continue to move forward. So even in the business perspective, there's really no difference. You need to have that balance, and I think your program is phenomenal, and especially working with women who are coming out of prison. It's being able to have that second start, is important,
Right.
and education is the key. And most people who are coming out of prison, they're not getting the education, so they end up right back to where they started at.
That's correct. You're absolutely correct.
So yeah, I think that's excellent. So tell me a little bit about you have a TV show and you have a radio show. That is phenomenal. So talk to me about your TV show. What do you do on your TV show?
So the name of the TV show is Empowerment Talk for Today's Women. And what I do is I just bring on dynamic individuals that have gone from rags to riches, not necessarily monetary, but they've learned some things about life, about spirituality, about wealth, about finances, about career development, about entrepreneurship. And I have them to come on and share those tips and strategies with individuals, to really be able to give their life lessons that they've learned to be able to empower others.
I love it. Yeah, absolutely. And it's needed. And like I always tell people, that you can learn from so many other individuals. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's always somebody out here who's gone through what you're going through. And, it's just being able to know how to find that resource, and realizing that, these people are sharing their stories because they've gone through that trauma. And so your platform is excellent. And I'm glad that there's a platform out there for those individuals in your community. So tell me, how does this transition, or is this similar to your radio show that you have as well?
It is very similar, because with the TV show, people actually come on set. So it's actually a live recording. But with the Blog Talk radio show, very similar. It gives me an opportunity to reach people all over the world, and then to have guests on my show also that don't necessarily have to fly into Nashville to actually be on the set.
Right. Awesome. Like I was telling you earlier, we talked, I'm growing up to be exactly like you are.
Right.
So I'm excited. I'm going in the right direction. I'm like, yes.
Yes, you are. And then, and then people are hungry. I mean, they're looking for solutions. They're looking for people that can be authentic and really tell the truth about all the things that they've gone through, and really provide result-oriented resources to help them to solve their problems.
Right, exactly. And that's the key. I think, a lot of times when we're in business, and, we're always, like you said, striving to find something. And then for those who have, expertise, you want to be able to put it out there, and make sure that, individuals really can utilize it. And I think that's the other thing that's important, is knowing that you're providing something that's important versus just talking. And with all the social media going on that we have, that, we're all supposed to fill that space in, sometimes it's just a lot of fluff. It's nothing that's tangible. In, programs like yours, you are definitely living it, and you're showing it. You've been doing it for 20 something years, so you know what you're talking about. And so for you to be able to provide these programs, and I know your programs are good. I've been one of your students, so
Yes.
So I've had the opportunity, to learn it and really get a grasp of it, versus having to guess. And even though I had tried which I guess we'll dive into, some of the publishing on my own, I still was missing some things. And taking your self-publishing program is phenomenal. So could you talk a little bit about some of the steps that it takes to be a self-publisher?
Oh, definitely. And before I answer that, I just want to share something with you that even though I've been in business for 20 years, I still take continuing education classes. I
Mm-hmm.
still go to seminars and workshops. I recently completed a 12-week cohort called the Bunker Labs, and it was geared
Wow.
towards military veterans that was starting and expanding their own business.
Mm-hmm.
So because it's so different now than it was 20 years when it comes to starting a business,
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to go through a cohort where I can, and we did the lean canvas, where you had to identify who your customers were first before you even look at your talents and your skills, which is so different from the way that you normally start a business. You
Right.
normally look at your talents and skills and what can you put in the market. But what
Mm-hmm.
we're finding is that even though you have a great idea or great concept, there's not necessarily a market out there of people that are interested in buying your product or service. So I always recommend continuing education and still going to learn how
Mm-hmm.
to improve as an entrepreneur.
I agree with that. Yeah, it's about reinvesting in yourself because we don't have all the answers. I mean, we understand as business owners that we understand our particular skill sets or what you said
Right.
or services or products that we are trying to, show people and provide to them. But at the end of the day, we still have to learn. So it's no different on our end because, like I said, things do change. In 20 years ago, things were to some degree a lot simpler because I can remember back in the day where I just stood up in front of a classroom and all I did was talk,
Right.
and provide my service. Everything was done on paper, and then when my son says to me, "Well, you got to get out here on social media," I'm like, a what? I got to do what?
Right.
I got to do videos. I got to do this, and it was his
Yeah.
suggestion, to come on here and have my own podcast program because it's very important. I guess to reach a larger entity of people. So you're right. Having that extra education is very important. And that's an excellent program. A 12-week program. That's a long program. So
It really is, but they make you dig into, and you are crystal clear before you finish that program
mhm.
what your product or service is. You are crystal clear about who your customers are, and you know exactly how you're going to make money and keep that business growing.
Wow, excellent. Sounds like something you may have to do in the near future for yourself.
There you go. Come on, because they
Add
have
it
one.
on.
They're all over the country, so they're all over the country, so you could definitely
Mhm.
take advantage of that. But earlier you had mentioned about the book publishing component,
Yes.
which is another passion of mine because I think that people, especially entrepreneurs, have an awesome story to tell. And so I'm coming back from a conference in Chicago where I taught a class called How to Brand Your Business by Publishing a Book Now.
hmm
And as a published author, it really establishes you as an expert. So I created publishinglady.com, which is a platform to allow me to work with individuals, take them through the process of how to write, market, and publish their own books. Because again, everybody has a story to tell, but as an entrepreneur, it can really help you to reach a larger audience. It can help you to leave a legacy, and it can also help you to increase your bottom line and your revenues as a published author.
I definitely agree with that. I'm finding that it's funny how you can get out here and talk all day long and use your services and provide, but as soon as you say you got a book, it's like, oh, everybody is like, you got a what? You become an author. It's almost like they feel that you're better off. We'll come and talk to you because you're an author, and it's just funny how things happen. And so when we connected back up together, I was just ecstatic to be a part of your program because that hour time that we were together, a little over hour time that we had, I learned so much that I did not know, and I thought that I did know just because I had previously had published a book prior. But it's just amazing how, like you said, how things have changed, and even in the self-publishing world, it has changed tremendously. And I thank you for giving me that opportunity because now that I have done that, I have the opportunity to share with other people what it's like to be a self-publisher as well. So I appreciate that. So,
Definitely. And you know what? That is the secret to entrepreneur success.
mhm.
What you just said is that you've learned something and you're going to take what you've learned and share it with other people. That is how you grow.
Absolutely.
Very good.
Absolutely. So I do want to talk about, we talked about all the fun things and all the great things and what it means to be an entrepreneur and how you got there. Talk to the listeners about your challenges.
Oh, I have many, many challenges. And of course, one of the biggest challenges is that I'm only one person. And in order to grow, I have got to let go. So hiring individuals to work for me has been one of the major challenges because unfortunately, And sometimes it just takes time to find the right person.
Right.
And I have had a challenging time attracting the right people that will come with the right skill set. They're not trying to steal my ideas, and they really want to expand what it is that I'm doing. So that would have to be one of the major challenges that I deal with often. And the second challenge would have been hiring, not when I recognized that I needed someone. When I recognized that I am outgrowing self, I waited too long to actually bring somebody on board because of those things I mentioned earlier. The fear of getting a crazy person in there.
Right.
And, those things that you think about is what you attract to yourself. So that's what was happening.
Yeah, I can imagine because, you've built your empire and you're still learning, you're still building. And, I kind of go through that same process, but I guess I'm learning that it's not about how large your team is, but how effective they are. And yeah, it is definitely one thing that I sit back and be like, oh man, I need this person, need that. But, at the end of the day, like I say, you've built this and then you're always wondering what's the person's motive, how are they really going to help you and so forth.
Yeah. And then I have two lovely kids, my daughter's in cosmetology school, my son's at the University of Alabama, and I'm trying to, encourage them to want to take over the business, but they're not interested. They have their own goals, their own dreams, and their own aspirations. So even though my desire is to leave a legacy, maybe it'll be for my nieces and nephews. I don't know. But these kids, they have their own passion, their own dreams. So I want them to do what they love to do.
Right. Because if they don't and we force it down on them, they'll be like, well, you made me do this, right? Yeah, I understand. Because I know I'm always like, my son is my creative business manager. And I'm like, I need to do this and that. He's just looking at me like, really? Like, you could do something. Like, no, that's why I have your, that millennial brain head that you have. You're 29 and you guys think differently than us, in our 50s. It really has taken me some time to come out of that shell and not hold on to that old fashioned skill set, which I think is still a good thing to have, that I think even today some of the younger people are missing, or just in business period. That face-to-face customer service. Not everything can be done through a video, or through an Instagram or Facebook page. I really do believe you have to have that face-to-face piece. So I agree with your challenges, but I think eventually you will find the right person, because you're not going anywhere anytime soon.
Now, and then I have some opportunities. What I've done now is really create a slew of train-the-trainer programs where I can find other entrepreneurs that, are doing something similar, but are very interested in incorporating what I do into their programs. Okay. So that has been very effective. And I have quite a few independent contractors that are trainers, graphic designers. So I have quite a few of them that step up and help when I actually need their assistance.
Okay. Wow. Interesting. That's a great concept. Yes, utilizing the tools and, like I said, not having to reinvent the wheel. You've already done it for us. So
exactly. And then, one of my aspirations for 2018 is to really spend some time doing international training, seminars, and workshops. So I'm working diligently on that. And so the foundation here in the U.S. will be structured so that I can be overseas for a month or two and come back here and everything still be in place. Exactly.
So you definitely need to have the right people in place to make that happen. Well, I'm looking forward to hearing more about that come 2018, which is, believe it or not, around the corner. I still can't believe that this year is going by so quickly. So a couple other questions. What advice would you give, another woman who decides that they want to go into business? It doesn't have to be particularly what you're doing, but what would you share with them right now if they were standing in front of you?
First thing I would say is to really take some time to do self-evaluation to identify what your skill sets are, what your passion and desire is, and then also to get to the root of the why. Why do you want to start your own business? Because the why is what will keep you motivated when, you're getting a bunch of no's and you're not getting any callbacks and you have no sales for the day and the marketing fell apart and you made a bunch of mistakes. The why is what keeps you motivated to want to be an entrepreneur, because it is very challenging running and operating a business. And so when you are clear about your why, it is what will keep you motivated to keep on going.
That is very true and very important piece, because a lot of people come in, they think they understand what they're doing, they think they understand what they're getting into, but once they're there, then that's when they start to rethink, because they hadn't really thought out the process, because everybody assumes that it's easy to be a business owner. It's like, oh, not realizing it's a job, you're
Yes,
not,
yes.
and you don't get that paycheck every week or every 2 weeks. You have to get out there and bust your behind. You have to be on your grind all the time in order to make it work. So it's important that you can get that money every week, but you have to build it to get to that point. So.
Right, and then you have to think outside the box, because like entrepreneurs, they sometimes come to being an entrepreneur with a 9-to-5 mentality.
Right.
And like you said, it's so different. But it's really looking at the diversity of, who are your customers? Is it the government? Is it individuals? Is it corporations? I mean, there's so many other facets of customers you can tap into. But you have to be really crystal clear about who that client base is, and then how are you going to reach that client base. And then another key component too is make sure you're surrounding yourself with positive people that are entrepreneurs, not wannabe entrepreneurs, but people that are running their business on a day-by-day basis, because they can give you some great insight. They can understand where you're coming from, and they can really help you to build your network because you're connected to them.
Absolutely. Yeah. And those who are not positive or, worried about, oh, you're trying to steal my idea or blah, blah, that's not the person that you want to be around, because there's plenty of those naysayers out there. So it's definitely important to have people that said it within your circle. And it's not about how large your circle is, it's the quality that you get from them. So absolutely. Yes. All right. So could you tell the listeners how to get a hold of you?
Oh, yeah, definitely. You can call me directly at 615-753-5647. Or, of course, you can go online to reneebobb.com. And all of my social media handles, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, are all under Renee Bobb.
All right, great. It has been a pleasure having this opportunity to talk with you. And I appreciate you sharing some time with me. But do you have any last words for the listeners?
I do. I wanted to share that I also recently purchased a semi-pro women's basketball team called the Music City Icons. And, people always ask me, well, why did you purchase a basketball team? Because it's always been a dream to have another platform to be able to work with women. The women that come on the team, I'm helping them to get opportunities to play in the WNBA as well as overseas. So when you, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as a woman, when you have these dreams and these aspirations, take the time to really dig deep and do it. Don't let anything stand in your way that will keep you from pursuing your goal and your dream. Yes, owning a semi-pro basketball team is colossal, but with God on my side, I knew that I can do it.
Amen. That is awesome, and congratulations. Oh my gosh, this is so exciting. I am so excited. I'm not even over there doing it with you. So, anyway, but again, I do appreciate the time. I know that you're extremely busy, but I really appreciate you taking the time and coming on and sharing your story with me and my listeners. For everyone else, I would like to say good night. I'm here every Thursday evening at 7 p.m. You can also follow us on Spreaker at www.spreaker.com/user/WSBI. You can also view and find me at the WSBI website, and you can go to www.wsbillc.com. Also visit us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. But until next time, you all enjoy your evening.